Yeah, quite a few are. Most of them are inspired by old real-life events. So I look at the period where the Roman Empire, where the Roman Republic turned into the Roman Empire, which is about 140 BC to about 30 BC. And that to me is the most interesting time period because it deals with these larger-than-life figures, these really peculiar Romans in a society where the only thing that mattered to them was personal and family advancement, and in such a way that, but also not in a way that would destroy their society. So everything had to be respectful. So they had to be ambitious enough, but not be ambitious enough to think they could ever be king. Because as soon as someone thought they could be king in Rome, everyone conspired against them and brought them down. And that's what's fun about playing with the golds, is seeing them all jockeying for individual power, legacy, position, this thing called auctoritas, which is a Latin word which basically means authority. And it's authority derived through deeds, through things you've done. And making the characters inhabit kind of that world where they idolize these principles of individual success and individual and clan-based wealth and fame creates stories all by itself. So that period is really influential. Another one was the more recently, the Arab Spring in 2012, 13, 14, seeing violent revolutions in the name of, or against totalitarian regimes, and then seeing the power vacuums that form in response to those rebellions. You look at Syria, but more notably Libya and Egypt were both used pretty heavily in terms of deciding how the republic dealt with new power and warlords forming and the shift between different rival factions. So yeah, there's a lot of things that go into inspiring these books. A lot of real life events. I think that's it would have been easier for Cassius to I think forgive, but I also don't think forgiveness is as much a part of their culture as it is a part of ours. I mean, so much of the foundation of human interactions is based on forgiveness, I think, and not holding grudges, particularly in Judeo-Christian societies it's hard for us to imagine how forgiveness isn't a fundamental element of their society. It's not something that's looked upon like forgive your enemies. It's not something that's preached. So I think Cassius would have had to figure it out for himself. So I think that initially it would have been the same thing. And then slowly we would see the evolution in Cassius a bit faster than we have in the way it actually turned out. But when Cassius puts his cloak on Darrow, when Darrow's laid out on the jackal's
in Morning Star, at the beginning.
It's much like that. Cassius has that kind of built into his nature. So I think we would have seen that happen earlier on. Perhaps his finding in identifying his own moral creed as opposed to following that of his society. That would have been a better chance. But I still think it would have been pretty sticky. Like Cassius watching that, I'm not sure he'd been like, it's all good, man. You killed my brother, no big deal.
Yeah, of course. But also the Abalonas seem to have a very strong family bond. So of course, Cassius wouldn't have forgiven that easily. But I mean, we've seen other characters forgive other characters. For example, when Tactus attacked the Arcos children and the family, Darrow was able to forgive him, but unfortunately, Lorne killed him.
Yeah. Lorne did not, because Lorne is a product of society and Darrow's a product of his. And I think that the family element in the Red Society is what makes Darrow stay human through all this violence, through all this war and bloodshed. It's that tight-knit family group. And think about it, in a mine, it's much more likely you're going to forgive your neighbor than you would if you were a gold, because you got to live next to their kids, next to their grandparents, next to everyone in their family. So I think that forgiveness would be much more a part of Red culture than it would be a part of Gold culture. It's a good question. What I wanted to explore was the concept that every other POV in Iron Gold, so there's 4 POVs, Darrow, Lyria, Ephraim, and Lysander. What I wanted was for Darrow to be the enemy and the antagonist of the other 3 POVs. And with Ephraim, we had someone who was able to show a unique side of the world, which is basically he fought for the Rising, became disaffected with it, saw the problems with the war, with and was bitter about his men dying, and so he had this sense of alienation from the cause. So I wanted that. You know, at Lysander, I wanted the direct alienation. You know, his family was killed. And with Lyria, I wanted her to have all these promises. This world would be better once she was freed. She had this milk and honey dream, you know, laid out for her, right? And instead, it was just a harder life than they even had in the mines. And so I wanted to look at those three perspectives, and Ephraim was the natural perspective of someone who had worked with the Rising and now saw the cracks in their plan. But I wanted him to be someone who had had so much personal loss, particularly because of the things Darrow had done, that he was able to have room to evolve. So he comes to this place, you know, he's an asshole drunk, right? And he evolves over the course of his books to become some people's favorite character. And I think it's because there's so much room for him to grow, because you knew about his potential in Red Rising, and you kind of started learning about him because you hopefully fell in love with Trig. Even though Trig had such a small time on the page, his husband, or fiance, I wanted people to see the virtues that Trig saw in this man where we saw no virtues. And at first you look at him and he just seems like a bad person. And then you're like, but there's got to be something in there. And then slowly start peeling it away. And that's a lot of times like the people in my life. I won't understand why someone is friends with someone. Then slowly, you're like that guy's, I love you, but you have really bad taste in friends. And then you start seeing like slowly, okay, there are virtues hidden beneath my initial presumption. And that's what Ephraim was for me. He was kind of a journey. And in many ways, he was kind of my favorite character to write in these new books, because it was such a different voice from Darrow. Because, you know, he's the opposite of Darrow. He's all about me, right? Yeah. He's not even about his class, not even about his culture, not even about his society. He's about how can I numb my pain? And you see through Iron Gold how people deal with their pain. Lyria does it by getting smaller and then eventually finally making her own decision to side with the Republic or to help Mustang. You know, you see Darrow dealing with his pain, and it's not necessarily in a good way. You see Ephraim dealing with his, and he's lashing out. And then Lysander, his is slowly growing and metastasizing into cancer. And so Iron Gold's about pain, and Dark Age is about the release of that pain, what they do with it. You know, I think it's 10 years. You know, it's that idea, 10 years of war, what it does to a human. And we read so many stories where they're archetypal. You know, the hero wins. And that's fun. That's great for us because it gives us a much needed solve, because our world is so hard, and it's so hard for us to make an individual or to affect individual change, you know. And so seeing Darrow and his band do that is wonderful. But I also think that we should question whether or not it's possible for their virtues, you know, the Republic, democracy, liberalism in general, to stand up to the test of time and all the problems, because you see the temptation in Dark Age for autocratic rule, for fascism, for different forms of government. And what I want to do is test those things against each other and see which virtues, you know, can really be held to when all is dark. So you know, it's kind of the test for the Rising, for the Republic, for all the characters. It's basically just meditation. It's the idea of using his senses, because what he does is closes his eyes, and it's regulating your fear. It's regulating your circulatory system. So all he's doing is controlling his human faculties and his human functions in order to become more efficient and streamlining it. So you can hear all the things he hears, you can see all the things he sees, but when he closes his eyes and has that fight, your mouth's, well, yeah, that's not when he closes his eyes and he has that fight, you're okay. He is not he's not actually seeing the things around him, because that would be impossible. So it's not like he's a Jedi. He's just remembering what's around him because he has a perfect representation, because he has a photographic memory, which has been, you know, talked about several times. So all he's doing is remembering the world around him. That's it. The mind's eye. Okay. Using the mind's eye to listen and hear and to see how people are moving through this world around it. I love those. They did a great job.
I got it. I bought it.
Good. I mean, the funny thing is, I get these books sometimes afterwards. I've been seeing people already with like them on Instagram, and I'm like, "Hey, where's mine?" They did such a good job. They also just released. Where was it? My office is a mess. Pardon me. There's the Iron Gold.
Oh, nice.
Such impress.
Wow.
Yeah, they did such a great job on it, and they have internal illustrations too. So you get to see Lyria meeting Cavax.
Wow.
Right?
So expensive.
Here's a Deep Grave, which is the prison of the society. I don't know if you can see because of the reflection. But it's basically this giant walking spider on the floor of the Pacific Ocean, and it collects trash. It's making up for our generation's mistakes. But the prisoners have to sort trash from old Earth. Yeah, so hopefully there'll be a lot more editions that we'll be able to send your way, and that's what's fun about the series. The world seems to always have a new story to tell. And, most of it comes from historical fiction. I read a lot of Roman history and a lot of Roman and Greek plays. And so whenever I return to those, as I'm doing right now, it just feels like it draws more stories kind of out of me and out of the Red Rising world. So there'll be some more stuff in there. I can't tell you when it'll happen because I don't know myself, but hopefully we'll have a whole world of Red Rising books. It might be fun too. I'm hesitant to return and write anything that you already know how it turns out. So if I write The Conquering, it would be difficult to find a way to do it dramatically so that it feels unpredictable. So I think that would be me trying to find my way in. It'd be great to write about Akaria, Ross, Selenia Saloon, John Merrywater invading Luna.
That would be so cool for the readers to just have like more lore about Red Rising.
We'd learn more about the world, but would be fun is learning about the human empires that are left before the Gold's Revolt.
True.
To see where all of our countries are, right? What's America up to? What's Germany up to during this time period?
A lot of books.
Yeah, but the thing is, you start writing in a series or one world for such a long time, what you want to do is kind of just not throw it all away, but put it all down, because you're having to keep all these balls in the air, and you have to remember so much, like the history of everything. And when someone's backstory, I gotta look through all my notes to make sure that that it's all true. I'm not just making it up or contradicting something and say they have, that they were an only child and then they had like 13 siblings in the next book, and it's like, ooh, missed that one up, which I have done before.
True,
a couple times, but keeping track of it, it'd be fun to just go into a fantasy series or another book series, and where it's carte blanche, where it's completely a blank slate and I can do what I want. Hopefully. I mean, it all depends. I got to talk to Dynamite, my distributor, to see what options there are to get it in Germany and other countries, because right now it's only in English. Yeah. Translations would be fun, but it's also with the visual medium might be easier to not have translated, because I always have fun reading Spanish comics and working on my Spanish, and so the what are they called? Here we go. We got two of them right here. So with Sons of Ares, I actually have not received the new one, which is called Wrath, but here is the first one, and it was so fun to work on because it was the first time that I'd had collaboration with Red Rising, and someone drawing the pictures and doing the artist? Here, I'll show you some of this stuff.
Who's the artist?
The artist is Eli Powell. Okay. So let's see. And Eli, fantastic. What I wanted to do with this series is to expand the kind of mythology of Red Rising, and also for us to learn where the Sons of Ares came from, and the origins of Severo's mother, as well as the origins kind of the rebellion as a whole. And so it's told in a different way. It's not first-person perspective like Darrow's story is, and instead revolves around the birth of the Sons of Ares and the key players there. Now, having just read the second book, I'm not going to ruin anything for you.
Sorry.
But the main character is someone you will know, and it takes place approximately 16 to 20 years before Darrow goes to the Institute. And so you get to see a lot of the familiar characters and what they were doing beforehand. So you see Quicksilver, you have Mateo, you have all these various factions kind of vying and jockeying for power. And then slowly you see this underdog, this young man who comes from no money, comes from little families, considered second class within his own civilization, the Golds. And you see the birth of what he's able to make, the small beginnings of the Sons of Ares. And it's so fun for me to trace those small beginnings and have those inside mythology and inside jokes even, and then be writing the 5th and 6th books at the same time, because then you get to coordinate it all, and it all becomes a bigger, richer, more, I guess, illustrated world. Mm-hmm. And that's what I've loved about these comics. We'll be doing one more for sure, so there'll be 3 in total. The TV show. Yeah, I love that question. No, so I wrote the pilot for that with another pretty talented writer, and so we're waiting to hear back whether or not it'll be made into a show. So we have a really great partner on it if we can come to an agreement. So I'm thinking I might have a great announcement in a couple months. I've been saying that for a couple months, but unfortunately,
it's okay.
Moves at the pace of moves at the pace of an iceberg going uphill.
This business is not easy. We all know that, so don't worry.
Yeah. But I have optimistic hope on it. I think it'll happen.
We too, actually, since 3 years.
Oh yeah. Did you guys watch The Witcher?
Yes.
Yeah.
Did you enjoy it?
Yeah.
Yeah, actually, so currently it's like hand washing with the Witcher song all the time.
Oh yeah.
It works.
Toss a coin to your Witcher. Oh valley of plenty.
So now you have to stop, otherwise it's an earworm you never get rid of. It's very.
Oh, my sister and I were singing it at Christmas, and my parents were like, "Just shut up, please." My dad just like stops. He's like, "No." Big kitchen knife because he's cutting sirloin for the whole family, and he's like, "No more."
Oh, no.
No, The Witcher is something. It's kind of like I wanted to love it, and I think it was just like so hard to follow at times, even though because the triple narrative, right?
Yeah.
But I really loved it. It was just fun to live in that world for a little bit. You know, it kind of felt like going back on Xena and Hercules. Did you ever watch those TV shows? Xena, Warrior Princess, Hercules,
we're not that young,
but.
Yeah, we watch them. We are not that young. Yes, we know.
We are.
Okay. No,
oh yeah.
I get that every time. I've been threatened actually. Like I'm not allowed to do.
It would be really tough. So Germany is definitely just
Germany
a fan of
several.
Always, yeah.
Fair enough. Well, I love Germany, so if I want to set foot in your country again, I will make sure to not kill Sepro. I actually studied in Heidelberg for a year, and then when I was like 19. And so I lived in Germany for, I guess, what was it, 2007 through 2008? So it's been a while since I've been back. We just got to do it around time when I can visit your Christmas markets.
Okay. Oh yeah, it's the alcohol. Yes. Germany is just alcohol.
Glühwein on the door. I need Glühwein.
Okay. So cuddle eel and have a wonderful day. Thank you so much.
I will. Thank you guys. Take care.
Bye. Bye.